when we divide a polynomial by something other than a monomial, because we just did that in the previous video, right? We just took, so looking at number 5, for example, a polynomial, if you divide it by a monomial, it's very easy because you just divide each term by that monomial. Well, when you hit something like this, number 11, this is not a monomial anymore. It's a binomial. You cannot just divide each term by that anymore. Okay, so here's what you can do though. We are going to do a throwback to elementary school when you learned long division. So let's just see what you remember. If I were to ask you to do the following, let's just do, I don't know, 15 divided into, oh, I don't know, how about 547? See if you remember the steps how to do that. Try it. Everybody try doing this long division.
Can you change the 15 to 5?
No. I mean, I could, but there's no, you can do it. I know, but once you do it once, you'll kind of remember. Maybe I'll help you get started, or no? Well, kind of.
Oh yeah, and then you just subtract 5 from 54.
And then you ask yourself, how many times can 15 go into 54? You put that number somewhere, you do something with that number, you do something else. Yes, it's kind of fun. You don't have to go to decimal. Once you, yeah, don't worry about going to decimal. Sorry. Okay, so let me walk you through if you've forgotten. First, you try, well, let's talk about some vocabulary. So let's back up even further. What do you call the number on the outside?
Oh, the divisor.
Yes, that's the divisor. The number on the inside is called the dividend. And the quotient, right, will be the answer that we write up top. Okay, so I will be using that vocabulary here and there, so just make sure that you remember, okay? Divisor is the number you are dividing by. Dividend is the number that's getting divided, and then the answer is just called the quotient. Okay, so if you recall, you take the number out in front, the divisor 15, and you would ask yourself how many times it goes into 5, but it doesn't go into 5 at all. So then you look at the number formed by 2 digits, 54. How many times can 15 go into 54? Whole times. How many whole times can 15 go in? 3. So you put a 3 up at the top over the 4 in the 54. Right? And then what do you do with that 3? You multiply by the number out in front. 3 times 15 is 45. You write the number right underneath here like that, and then what do? You subtract those numbers. 54 minus 45 is 9. That number, by the way, should always be smaller than that one. If it's not, then that means the number up top is wrong. Anyway, okay, and then what do? Once you bring down the next number, which in this case is a 7, and then I repeat the process. How many times can 15 go into 97? So you put the 6 up at the top, and then you do the 6 times 15, which is 90, and then I subtract, and I get a 7. And then here is where, so 7 is my remainder. If I wanted to go into decimal land, that's when you would start putting a decimal in zeros and keep going. We don't have to do that. So when you were just starting this, you wrote like R7 up at the top. Did you ever have to write it as a fraction? So in other words, 15 goes into 547 36 whole times, with 7/15 left over. So one way to write the answer, instead of writing R7, is to write plus 7/15. So the answer to 547 divided by 15 is 36 and 7/15. That's my answer without going into decimal land. So that's essentially what we're going to do. We're just going to do it with polynomials. But we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to do all this work. If I have a remainder, I'm going to write it like that. Whatever the remainder is over whatever I was dividing by. Okay, but the steps are the same. So if you ever get stuck, just go back and make up any long division problem and follow the steps, and you're going to do the exact same thing. So let's look at number 11. Okay, first of all, if you're looking at number 11, and it's written this way, who's the number on the outside? Who's going to go over here? X plus 10. I'm dividing this number by that one. This is the divisor. That's the dividend. So here's a couple of things that you need to make sure. You need to make sure that everybody is in standard form. So remember what that means. That means the highest exponent first, and then I work my way down. So yep, that one's good. And so was that one. I don't think any of these... Oh, no, look at 19. See on 19 how it's mixed up? You would have to rewrite that first, okay? So just be mindful of that. You have to have it in standard form first, both of them. So this one you'd have to rewrite to be b plus 5. So both your divisor and dividend need to be in standard form. The other thing which is confusing is that you need to put in a 0 placeholder for any exponent that's not represented. Miss Sabia, what are you talking about? Look here. See how it starts with an x to the third?
So it'd be 0x.
No, because it's there. But if I was missing, like I have x to the third, I have x squared, I have x to the first, and then I have no x at all. If I was missing any one of those terms, so pretend there was no x to the first power, I'd have to write in plus 0x to stand for it. So let's see if there's one like it. 17. Look at 17. See how it goes x to the third, x squared, but then I don't have an x to the first power.
So you put a 0.
I would put plus 0x and then the minus 8. Because I need a column for every degree from wherever I start all the way down. So we'll do number 17 after this one. Okay, so anyway, we're doing 11. So x plus 10 goes on the outside, and then on the inside I have x to the third plus 12x squared plus 19x minus 2. It's in standard form. Everybody's there. 3, 2, 1, none. Now, the way that you ask yourself the question is a tiny bit different with long division, but it's the same idea. So, is everybody paying attention? You with me? You here? You ready? You focused? We're good? All right. Here's your first question. You ask yourself, what do I need to multiply x by to get x to the third? X squared. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put x squared up in the top, but in all of these columns the degrees are going to be the same. So every number that I put here will be an x cubed. Every number that I put here will be an x squared. Every number here will be an x to the first, and this will be just single numbers. So since I had an x squared, I put it in the x squared column. Just like when you were dealing with regular numbers, once you put a number at top, what did you do with that number? You multiplied it by what was out in front. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. So what's x squared times x? So I'm going to write it underneath in the x to the third column. And then I do x squared times 10. What's that? Plus 10x squared. So I write that in the x squared column.
Wait, so what? You just take the difference between the first, like...
You ask yourself, what do I multiply that by to get that term?
Put it
And you put it at the top.
second.
Well, you just put it in the column that matches. So because it's an x squared, I put it in the x squared column.
So if it was like a number that didn't have, it would be over the 2? Like what if it was just like if it was whole number,
Oh, yeah, then you would just put the 1 over here.
and if it was like just 1x, then
Mm-hmm. So like if this were an x squared, what would I multiply x squared by to get x to the third? It would be x to the first, so it would have gone here. That's all. You just got to keep all the columns. Yep. So now I put the number at the top, I multiplied, and then what was the next step with numbers? You subtract. Here's another tiny little difference. Are you listening? Because this is a big deal. Please pay attention, watch, listen. Everybody's listening, watching. You need to subtract the whole thing. So I minus this guy and I minus this guy. One cool thing that will always happen if you're doing it correctly, the first term here will always cancel out. So x cubed minus x cubed, they're gone. 12x squared minus 10x squared is 2x squared. And then you bring down the next number, plus 19x. And now I kind of just keep repeating the process. But I'm going to ask myself, what do I multiply x by to get 2x squared? 2x. And it's positive, so up at the top I write a plus 2x. You follow? Now, once you do a couple, you'll fall back right into the routine. Once you have the number at the top, you multiply by what's out in front, write it down underneath. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 10 is 20x. But then what do? You minus that whole thing. So now it's a minus 2x squared and a minus 20x. So look, that first thing, see, it cancels again. It's such a nice little self-check. That should always cancel out. And then 19x minus 20x is negative x, right? And then I bring down the next number. And now what? Someone said it. Taylor, was that you? It's only the first number you care about. Negative 1. What do I multiply x by to get negative x? It's a negative 1. So negative 1 up at the top. Multiply the negative 1 through. So watch this. Negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times 10 is negative 10. But then you have to... You subtract. If they're already both negative, what happens to them? They turn into pluses now. And look, that first one still cancels. And then a negative 2 plus 10 is 8. There's nothing left for me to bring down. I'm sorry. So that is my remainder.
So it would be 8 over x plus 10?
That's it. So I write my answer. Because it's a positive 8, I write plus 8 over x plus 10. You see that?
I see it, but
Oh, this is what I really like. This is my
It actually gets fun once you get the hang of it.
no.
So I told you we would next do 17, I think. Just so you can see one that you need a 0 placeholder. I know. It's all right. We'll get it. 17. So I'm going to write that one. Who goes on the outside? Who's the divisor? X plus 8. So x plus 8 is on the outside. Now please watch how you have to write this. See how I'm missing the x of the first term? See that? So I'm going to write x to the third plus 8x squared plus 0x and then the minus 8. Because I need to make a column for it. Otherwise, where would I put my x's to the first? I would have nowhere to put them. So I need a column. I need to create a column for everybody. So now I have it. All right. So I do the same thing. What do you multiply x by to get? X cubed. X squared. So I put it in the x squared column up at the top. Multiply x to the third plus 8x squared. Ooh, this one's interesting. Now what? I subtract. So you become a minus, you become a minus. Cancels. What's 8x squared minus 8x squared? 0x squared. Don't freak out because you have a 0. It's fine. You're going to treat it like any other number. Normally, I'd bring down the next number. What do you multiply x by to get 0x squared? 0x, right? So I put a 0x up at the top. I multiply it through, so that would be a 0x squared plus 0x. Now I subtract them both. This doesn't usually happen, but it can. All right, so that's just 0x. Bring down my next number. What do you multiply x by to get 0x? 0. So plus 0 at the top. Multiply the 0 through. 0x plus 0. Minus them both. I do have a remainder of negative 8. So my answer, negative 8 over x plus 8. Now, when you write your answer all nice and neat, I actually don't need the zeros. So when you write your answer, you can just write x squared minus 8 over x plus 8. You'll like it once you try a couple. So, speaking of which, let's talk homework.